evening and welcome to the Moving Home with Charlie weekly workshop with Charlie Lambden and guests. Live at 8 p.m. every Wednesday. This show is here to help all home movers of the UK be better prepared for dealing with the gauntlet that is trying to move home.
Helping make sure everyone has a home.
Whether you're buying, selling or both, it's a live show. So if you have a question about your move, pop it in the live chat. In the meantime, sit back, have a noisy slurp of your drink and enjoy the show.
Sorry, I can't resist it. Good evening, everybody. It's an absolute miracle that I'm here at all. I can't even begin to describe, and I won't bore you with the technical problems. But here's a live slurp for those of you who expect it. Oh, and a great sip of a great cup of tea made for me by my 9-year-old daughter this evening. This evening, on this evening's show, we have our special guest is Teddy Kleindienst. He is an estate agent from the Surbiton area of London, from Hunters, and we'll be taking your live questions. This is a sellers special. So that's the main part of today's live stream is seller help, and I've got a couple of seller case studies to talk to you about. One successful one unsuccessful one. So if you are a seller watching this and you have questions, please put them in the live chat. Please also make sure you put question, even better, seller question, so that I can pick it out very easily. We've also got a message from mortgage broker Lewis Shaw that's going to come at the end after Teddy. A live Q&A with Teddy on the seller stuff. Stiggy will be joining us to discuss, in calm and professional sobriety, we'll be discussing about how the effect of the budget is going to have on the housing market and the economy. But to begin with, I'm going to kick off with today's double announcement by the Office of National Statistics. We've had both an inflation readout and we've had a house price readout. And both of them are complete gaslighting cobblers. Got to watch my language this evening. It's before the watershed. And Wednesday workshop is supposed to be clean and no swearing. I will do my best. Very important. Sasha Yanshin, who is a YouTuber who talks about the stock market and economy and investing, has put a video out today about the UK's inflation data, where he shows you that the ONS in their own commentary and the media and everyone who used the headline that today's inflation went up because of energy prices, he shows that energy inflation was actually negative, and that is total fabrication, lie, and gaslighting, and that inflation is going up because of owner-occupier housing costs more than anything else. Owner-occupier housing costs are now up to 7.4%, which is the highest, I think, since the early 90s, when we had an inflation crisis. And CPIH is up at, I think it's 3.4%. And the CPI measure is up to 2.3%, but that's just not a relevant measure anymore. He explains why. In his video, he explains very clearly, and he goes on to explain exactly why the rental market is doing what it's doing with prices, why that's happening. Exactly, he breaks it down for landlords. Okay, so I put a link to that video below. It's very funny, but it's very incisive, and I urge any of you who want to understand why what's happening in the economy is what is happening to housing market and inflation, and therefore interest rates, watch his video so you understand that thinking. That you don't have to necessarily agree with him or not, but at least hear it, because he explains what's happening very well. I'll come on to house prices. Yes, Graham Groovy, exactly. Wasn't that was very, very funny. I can't say it because it's the other piece of much more worrying, and there's nothing funny about this news at all, is that this afternoon British-made missiles were fired from Ukraine into Russia for the first time, and I don't even think Parliament or anyone has had a chance to respond to what this means. But with America suddenly authorizing, having previously refused to do so, suddenly authorizing the use of long-range missiles into Russia, and then yesterday suddenly authorizing the use of landmines in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, and then today British missiles have actually been fired into Russia when Russia said that's a red line. We've got to be very, very careful. It's very, very worrying to see this escalation happening, and it's very worrying to see what might happen next. But it could affect things in all kinds of ways. It's not good because it raises uncertainty. Okay, but on house prices, and I posted a lot of this on X today. And I don't want to spend too long on this because I want to get into talking to Teddy about seller stuff and seller questions. I'm not even going to put it on screen. You can go and look it up. The ONS's house price readout today said that house prices are now, the yearly house price growth for the UK is 2.7%, I think it was, from memory. That's for England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales combined. All four of those are completely different. None of them are 2.7%. However, what Otter Property and Mark, forgive me, Mark, your surname escapes me, I think it's Tabret, and I posted this on my X channel today. I will actually get this up. I will share this on screen. Okay, I want to show you two things. Right, this graph here shows the ONS house price index prices when they were reported and what they're revised to each subsequent month. Okay, and this one shows that last November's prices were revised down by about 2.8%. So if you were to impose that onto today's readings, and you realize that every time we have a new ONS house price readout, it is always too high, and it always gets revised down and down and down and down each month as more and more house prices get reported. And in the Southeast, we're talking about September 2023's prices in the Southeast are now 4% lower than when, as of this month's ONS data, than when they were reported this time last year. 4%. So back last year, when the ONS reported September 2023's house prices and said, oh, they're 1% up or 2% up, they weren't. They were negative. House prices were falling. But the industry goes, oh, look, see, the Office of National Statistics, it's official data, and they say house prices are going up. Honestly, anyone who wants to know what's happening with their house price, you need to completely disregard ONS headline house price data. I won't go into it now because when you break down by country, it all gets different. But what they do have, and to give them their due, the ONS does have housing prices in your area, and you put in your local authority, wherever it might be, right? And then you get actually better local data, and they break it down by property type. Okay. And I've just picked a completely random example here, Wandsworth, right? Detached houses are down, what's that, nearly 7%, but flats are only down 1%. So that's a 7% price fall in the same borough as a 1% price fall, just based on different property type. This is why you must ignore the national figures. And if an estate agent ever says to you, oh, but the ONS said house prices are going up, you should call them out on it and say, number one, that's the average of all four countries. Number two, it doesn't break it down by property type. Number three, it doesn't break it down by region. Please do not try and gaslight me that the government says house prices are going up when I know that they are not. Never, ever again let an agent say to you, well, the ONS reported today house prices are up. Right? I mean, if you live in Wandsworth, which I've just picked at random, right? Does that tell you your house prices have gone up this year or not? So do not accept any estate agent ever saying to you, Well, house price, yeah, just today the ONS said house prices have gone up, and that uses land registry data. That's official. So, can't say fairer than that. House prices, just don't. Call them out on it. Call them out on it and say national averages are not a reflection of what's happening locally. That's all you have to say, right? And if the agent doesn't know that, you'll be doing them a favor. It's very, very frustrating when agents do this, right? So there's that. And then there was another graph that I want to show you from today. Just briefly, it's so important because everyone needs to get on to understand what's actually happening. Hang on a second, it's coming here momentarily. Right, I've got it. It is Mark Tabret. Mark, thank you. This is great work. This is land registry data, and it's what I was just talking about the southeast. The ONS's reported figure is now £16,000 lower for the southeast as of this month than when it first reported them a year ago. That's 4% lower than when they first reported. And what this proves is that the ONS's first readout is never reliable enough because it's always such a small sample. So the latest ONS data on house prices is never accurate, not even approximately. Not even approximately. And it isn't an average. That's not what they calculate either. It's a hedonically regressed, mixed adjusted, weighted load of utter testicles. I can use the word testicles. That's not a rude word. I can use that before the watershed. So that's ONS house prices and ONS inflation. Go and watch Sasha's video. It's linked to below. If you can't see a link below, just look up Sasha Yanshin inflation on YouTube and you'll find it. And I'm deadly serious. Watch it. Watch how he spells it out and goes down into the government's precise figures and shows that they are completely lying about the cause of inflation going back up. Okay. And breathe. And let's bring in Teddy and let's calm myself down a bit, shall we? Good evening. How are you? You well?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
I'm very well. My blood pressure's a little bit high with all of this misinformation coming from the government. But otherwise, I'm very well, thank you. And it's great to see you and great to have you back on the show.
Yeah, lovely to be back. Thank you.
Now, listen, while I look to see what questions are coming in, could I start by asking you to tell the audience about that? You commented on the live stream a couple of nights ago about an instruction that you just won. When another agent, I'll let you tell the story about the overvaluing that goes on and what it means to sellers when they go with the wrong agent.
Yes, it was a fairly simple case, actually. Well, to me, it seemed like a fairly simple case because what I said last time as well is at the moment, so our base core area is Worcester Park and Surbiton, particularly Worcester Park is where we've got the most stock. And where normally you would see the postcode in itself varying between 40 to 70 properties on the market when the market was actually booming, compared to now when we've just passed 200. So the stock levels have tripled to quadrupled. And with that, the good side is, yes, the prices have come down, but the good side of it is we've got so much more evidence compared to what we've ever had to actually sit down with the sellers and lay them out side by side properties that are spitting image of theirs and actually say, look, this is exactly the same like yours, same square footage, fairly same decor, same garden, facing the same, it's identical. So tell me how, according to the other agent, this can be 100,000 more to what it just doesn't make sense. Right. And what happened last time was we've just taken on a property that was basically 100,000, technically £95,000. We valued it lower compared to two other agents. So one agent valued it £75,000 more and the other one £95,000 more. And at the same price where the other agents have valued it, there's another property on the market that's actually, because this is a probate property we're talking about, the property that's already in the market and still not selling has actually already been done up, new bathroom, new kitchen. And the audacity of another agent to come in, and you just simply have to blatantly lie. You just cannot miss that because it's literally 7-8 doors down.
Right. So what you're saying, you're seeing rampant overvaluing. So you're saying you've seen 3 or 4 times more stock on the market. That's a lot, isn't it?
At least for our area, obviously. I haven't studied the
just for your area, which is just it's the Surbiton area, isn't it, in Surrey? That kind of area. Yeah. And you're seeing agents, and what sort of value? We're talking about around about the £600,000 mark, aren't we, for the houses you're talking about?
That's our bread and butter. Those 3-bedroom houses around about the £600,000 mark. Yeah, that's
and you're seeing
where the
other agents, even though there's all that unsold stock on the market, still trying to get away with tempting vendors with another 100 grand. But it sounds like that one you were talking about the other day saw through their cow poo and have gone with you, and they chose you at a nearly £100,000 lower, right?
They have, because the evidence was so undisputable, black and white, that if they went against my advice that was so laid out in front of them, they just didn't have the argument. It was impossible. And we've got an open day this Saturday. We've already got 7 or 8 viewings as I left the office today. So we still have Thursday, Friday, and Saturday early morning. So we still have 2.5 days. So that's going to be around about a dozen viewings. When everybody's saying the market's collapsing, nothing's selling, everything's dead, we've got an open day with a dozen viewings. Because
you've priced correctly. And this is the point. This is what the message I want to get out to sellers is: the buyers are there, but the buyers are getting more savvy to the price puffing, and they're not willing to overpay in this risky looking economy, are they?
Correct.
And so a few people, just for people who weren't here to see you last time, can you just remind us about what you think's happened to prices in that market in the last year or two? Where are they compared to the peak in percentage terms, roughly?
I haven't done a recent calculation towards it, but a few months ago when we last checked, we were around about an 11.5% since the milestone that we nowadays call Liz Truss.
Yes.
When all of that has happened, that budget, since then we've got 11.5%, which in terms of bigger houses, obviously that's average combined flats and the bigger houses. So if you're talking a £1.4 million 6-bedroom house with an acre of land, well, that's lost a lot more than 11%, whilst a small flat has lost 2 or 3%, if at all.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to ask you. So because that's what I've been seeing everywhere, is that at the higher end, prices have come down much more in percentage terms than at the lower end, where there's still more demand from buyers because of the downsizing, right? Are you seeing downsizing happening?
From us, nothing out of the ordinary. It's always been happening, and it always will be happening. Once people reach that point in their life where it's time to downsize, they just do. There was a few people that held back from downsizing because all of a sudden 2 years ago they had an agent around saying, well, this is going to be around about 1.5 million, and now we're talking $250,000 less, and there's the oh my god, what happens now factor. So a few people do get scared, but the majority still have to move ahead, and they make different arrangements. It's obviously a case by case scenario, but it's still there.
Okay, well, we have a curious absence of questions. I've got to look in a few different places. We've got no seller questions in the live chat at the moment. It's okay because I've got 2 things about 2 seller situations I'd love to get your feedback on. Let me just double check so I'm right up to speed that we haven't got any private messages on from Instagram. We do have.
Yeah, go for it. And whilst you are looking, I can see the comment from Rich that's interested that the flats have held up in our area with the prices. What I would add to it, Rich, is the flats haven't increased in price as much either when the market was booming. So they haven't gone up as much, and now they're not suffering as much. So that shows.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got 2 seller case studies to talk about with you and in front of everyone this evening. And again, guys, I know that there are sellers out there watching. I know you're out there watching, and I know that there are sellers watching who aren't selling and aren't getting any offers and aren't getting any viewings. And it's curious. I think the reason they're not asking questions is because actually they all deep down inside know what the problem is, right? So case study number 1 is someone who lives in Southwest London. It's actually in the Kingston area, I think. No, sorry. They're relocating from North London to South London. That's it. They're relocating Northwest London down to South London. And they've got to sell and they've got to buy, and they've got to do it within a deadline because they've got a school to get their children into. Okay. And I had a video call with them last week. And the agent that they were going to go on with had said, oh, look, there's no hurry. Maybe put it on in the new year. And I said, well, that's curious because that's not what I'd be doing. If I wanted to be moved into a new home well in time next summer, you got to get a sale completed and a purchase completed in that time with all the risks. I said, you don't have any time to spare. And I said, what I suggest you do is that go to the agent and say, I accept that the market will determine the price that my property sells at. And I just want to under offer at best market price. I want to under offer by Christmas. So within 4 weeks, and therefore I'm going to let you do what you want with the asking price on the condition that you get me competing buyers. Now, as an agent, you'll know that that's dream to hear that from a seller, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
That allowed you to do your job properly. Now, provided you market it well, provided the photographs are good quality, provided you do that phased marketing and a bit off market to begin with. Anyway, I've got a message from that person today who followed my advice. They said to the agent, don't care about the asking price. I only care to get competing buyers. I want to under offer by the latest at Christmas with a guaranteed completion before the end of March because of the stamp duty increase at the end of March, right? And I got a message from them today. They're under offer. They had competing offers. In under a week, that agent's got that property under offer. In this market, right? They've done it. So, and they're happy with the price. Obviously, otherwise they wouldn't be accepting the offer, right? They're happy that they got competing buyers and that wow, that's fantastic. We've got a solid buy to proceed with. So the message there for sellers is that if you do it right, even in a difficult market, you will sell and not at an undervalue because competing bidders, that is the market, right? So, yeah, I mean, how often does that happen to you that a seller says, I understand the market will set the price, do what you need to do, get me under offer? Does that happen? Or do you always just get people saying, I want this much, I want that much?
It is very rare. Obviously, sounds brilliant, but it is very rare, obviously. But it is the right approach. Exactly what you said. That is the exactly right approach. First of all, it enables the agent to do their job properly. And second of all, I mean, timing, if you get it right, you can have your property under offer within 2 weeks. Funny enough, we had a property in Ferndown Close in Sutton this week. So we've put it on a Thursday last week. Saturday was the open day. Today we sent sales memorandums out and it's gone over the asking price.
Open day on Saturday and it's Wednesday and you sent, that's it. It's under offer. Memorandum of sale gone out. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's got over the asking price.
So guys, do you understand why I've got Teddy on the show, right? Teddy is an example of an agent who doesn't overvalue and knows how to get property sold quickly, even in the market that most agents are saying is the most difficult market they can remember for a long time, right? And I just want to, before we go into the next case study, which is very kindly from someone who has messaged me on X, and they've given me permission to share the full information and their property listing and everything else, because they can't understand why it won't sell. What was it I was about to say? I can't remember. Right, let's go on with the next case study then. Let me just pull this conversation up. Here we are. So this seller is somewhere in the north. They have got a 3-bedroom house. I think it's 3-bed detached, or is it 4-bed? Let's find out. I've got the property here. Here it is. Let's just get it up on screen. Okay, this is the house, right? It's 4 beds, not 3 beds. And as you can see, they've already reduced the price. So they went on the market on the 11th of October at £650,000. And they've reduced the price from 650 to 625,000 pounds, and that was 2 weeks ago. And still had no viewings since then. Now, I asked some questions. I'm going to leave that on there while I explain what happened. So, hi Charlie, we put our house up as shown. Zero interest whatsoever. It's 5 minutes walk to a lovely village, decorated nicely and ready to go. Would love your feedback on anything that stands out to you. We are with what we think are a strong agent in the area. Totally stumped as to why we are getting nothing at all. Not a single viewing since it went up in October. So I replied with the following questions. First question is, what is the agent saying and do they have any explanation? Second question, how many agents did you talk to and what did they all say on price? Third question, did you discuss pricing competitively to attract competing buyers or did the agent suggest otherwise? And fourth, what sort of comparable sales did the agents provide to justify their marketing price? So the agent's response to why they're having no viewings is, oh, the neighbours got scaffolding up. They think this will put people who do a drive-by off if they decide to go for a drive to have a look. They're saying they want to put an alternative photo in from a different side, showing a different angle of the house compared to the current first photo. The scaffolding should be coming down soon, but the neighbour doesn't do things quickly. So that's the answer to question number one. Now, I think, what do you think of that agent's response to what he's saying? Oh, it's the neighbour's scaffolding. Well, surely the scaffolding was there beforehand, right? That to me just sounds like an excuse.
I mean, to start with, the scaffolding is not visible in the photos. So if the scaffolding was an issue, which it's a really bad excuse, but if that was to be the actual issue, they would have had interest on the property. But once booking it in, people would be cancelling after drive-by, if that was actually true. But I know nobody was ever going to not buy a property because the scaffolding's up. I've never had it in all the years. All neighbours were doing works. Well, so?
I agree. I think that is a bit of a cop-out, that particular excuse. But the next thing they said is they want to put a different photo more from the side, which shows the significant depth of the house compared to the current first photo. So, let's just get back to that first photo. I agree that changing. So where are we? There. So that is the main image, right? I agree that's not a great hero shot, is it? That's not a great first photograph, and I would agree with the agent that changing that photograph, the main image, is something they should do anyway, and often can result in more people clicking on it. Okay. Now the next thing the agent says. So would you agree with that? I'm asking.
The only thing I would check before going into that would be the actual online analytics, whether the traffic is coming through. Because if there's no traffic coming through because of the photo, okay. But if you've got thousands and thousands of views online, clearly people are going past the first photo. So that's BS as well then. So that's the only thing to evaluate before going into that.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. So, the agents looked at 7 other houses in a similar price range and size and spec, and they aren't really getting much attention either. Well, again, that's something that they should have known beforehand. They're then saying we put it on just before half term, which stunted the views. I mean, these are all thin excuses in my view. Yeah, we did reduce the price by 25k after a month at the agent's advice because we had done nothing, but that's done nothing. Spoke to 2 agents. They said that at 650 it wasn't bad, and then we reduced to 625. I personally think we are probably around the 606 to 617 mark, which is very precise. Let's just call it 610. Okay. So that's the seller saying now they personally think it's around the £610,000 mark. The agent did provide around 8 other semis nearby, which were similar or more in price. We are on a main road, despite the gate, which I know will put some people off. But once they get inside, they will love it, and as that's what we did. So, to me, this is a I'm trying to be sensitive because I'm very, very grateful to this seller for allowing me to share this conversations and case study, because what I'm seeing is the fact that a lot of sellers, and there's a lot of love has been put into this property. You can see that, right? That it's a really, they put a lot of love in there. And a lot of sellers, I think, get blinded by the amount of effort, energy, money, and love they put into a property. And they don't understand that buyers who weren't involved in the process of that investment won't be as invested emotionally as you, the sellers, are. The market has no emotions about your house, but you do as a seller. You got to remember that, right? It genuinely, especially when you've loved a house and put your heart and soul into it, you're going to have a perception of your house. The market is cold as far as the feelings towards your house. But my first question, and I haven't had a chance to go back to him yet, is if you think it's 610, why did you put it on at 650? Because at 6, so I then went back and said, if you think it's 610, why not market it at 600 to get competing buyers? And he's come back and said, I'm speaking to another agent now, as per your advice, getting out to view. And the other agent had another agent in today, and he suggested what you did: go at 600 and then get people competing brackets. Hopefully, now if an agent says to me, "Hopefully," I would say, "No. I'm not hiring you to use hope, because hope is not a strategy, right?" And obviously, this seller has been convinced with comparables of lots of other properties that also haven't sold. And one of the points I want to get across to people is never look at the asking prices of unsold properties for comparison. Would you agree with that?
Of course.
So what would your, based on the story I've told you so far, and there's a lot more, he goes into detail a lot more, what would your suggestions be?
Well, exactly, because the reduction from the reason why the reduction from 650 to 625 has done nothing is because when you look at search brackets on the portal, the search bracket is 600 and the next one is 650, meaning that the reduction to 625 did not open the property to a single new pair of eyes that hasn't seen it before, meaning whoever's seen it before at 650, they could have easily offered 625, but they haven't, which means that's not going to make any difference. That's first of all. I don't know the market there, but looking at the price, why is it not selling? I would myself most probably put it on a guide price to start with, 600 to 625. That way you let buyers know when you're booking them in that the offers are expected to punch that threshold of 600 and go slightly over, whilst you still do open the property to the bracket of people looking up to 600. And people always say, well, Teddy, why do you market to those? That's below their budget. Most buyers will lie about their budget, because why would they trust an estate agent with how much they're willing to spend on it? Because the estate agent does work for the seller, not for the buyer.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, one of the things I said to him was in a message back, I said, look, assuming there are no major problems with the property, and I'm making that assumption because you've told me, it can only ever be the price. The marketing looks good. I mean, you might want to have a different main image, but the marketing looks good. So it is just the price. And this comes down to the problem that I think so many sellers around the country are suffering from, which is that because of what I was talking about at the start of this video, where the ONS puts out this total nonsense about house prices going up when they're not, right? Because they're putting an initial thing out there, and actually I'm going to bring Housing Stig in on this because he can chime in. Alex, hi there.
Oh, hello, mate. How you doing?
Good, thanks. So I'm just bringing you in on this because it's exactly what the kind of stuff we've talked about before. When the ONS has its first publication, like it did today, of the most recent month's prices, it's the sample size is only about 8%.
Yeah, it's tiny. Tiny.
And what Mark Tabritt and Otter Property have been showing is that as they add in more and more completions over the course of a year, it's bringing it down, except in Scotland where it hasn't. And so that's interesting. In Scotland, there's actually revised them slightly up. In Aberdeen, Mark Tabrick gave that example in Aberdeen, where
Aberdeen is a very unusual market, but yes.
yeah. But the point is, Aberdeen is an unusual market, but it's a market that perhaps when the actual market is going up, revisions go up. When the market is going down, revisions tend to come down. I don't know. That's just a pure guesswork based on.
Well, it's because of their the way that they calculate their medians and averages. If they were to use the raw data, then we would have seen a different story, as indeed Otter, etc., did, and I did. But the problem is their model takes a while to catch up. So it needs more and more data, which is why you then see the revisions primarily down across most markets, but up in the odd one.
So, I'm the journalist, the national newspaper journalist that I've been talking to the last 2 days about this particular thing. This is exactly what he is hoping to help get out there, which is that the combination of the ONS and Rightmove and all of the other regular contributors to the house price narrative of the country are creating a false impression of what house prices are doing. And that is leading to poor sellers like this chap who's allowed us to share his house, genuinely being completely bewildered as to why he thought he priced it reasonably and has had zero interest. And I just think that, if sellers just, as most sellers do, refuse to accept the fact that the market will decide their price, so set your marketing launch price attractively to get competing buyers, and then you can throw your asking price away. It no longer matters because the buyers are competing against each other. As Teddy just said, I don't know if you heard, on his open house on Saturday, clearly, Teddy, you got competing bids from that day, right?
Correct, yeah.
I mean, just give us an example. How many people came on the open day to view it, and how many offers did you get? Do you know?
So the one that we've had, the one that was already under offer now, we had 10 viewings. One of them was a video viewing directly to Hong Kong, which was the actual purchase in the end as well. So out of that, we've had three offers out of 10 viewings. So that's 30% offer rate. Basically.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
In this market, that's amazing. And this is what I want sellers to understand. Let a good agent do their job, which is let the market discover the price for your property. And stop pinning your hopes to a number that you think or want or hope you can get, because all that happens is you end up, as this poor chap has, whose house we've just been looking at, which is the house now looks overpriced, and he's now lowered the price once. He's probably got to lower it again, maybe change agents.
Looks good.
And instantly, it's lost that initial fresh, a new property that everyone wants. And if you want, you don't get two chances to do that. You only get one chance to have that, wow, a fresh property, it's good value, let's buy this one, and get those competing buyers. And actually, that journalist I was talking to made a very interesting comment. He said, if people have got their fingers in their ears, there's nothing you can do.
No.
And I thought that was very interesting. But I mean, Teddy, if you could give a message to the home sellers of the UK who are sitting here watching this, either thinking about selling their home or currently trying to and failing to sell their home, and you could speak to all of them as an agent from the heart with truth, what would you say to them?
You put me in the spot there. That was not in the script. The first thing is, when you do 2, 3, 4, 5 appraisals or valuations on your property, when you have decided and committed to sell, ask the agent. So forget the price. It doesn't matter what they waffle about price-wise. Ask them on how to approach it to actually achieve the most for the property without caring about what number you're looking to achieve. When you focus on that, and in our cases, and I always say it openly because people are like, don't share the secrets. I'm like, they can't pull it off anyway. It's because they can't be as honest. Because I mean, it was actually today I was taking a property on in Rains Park, and I told the seller, right, the first thing that you need to do if you want to go to the market, you need to clean up. I know you've got children, but pick up all of the toys, ask your wife to clean the kitchen, prepare it for the photos. You guys need to put the effort in. I'm not here for you to like me. I'm here for you to do a good job. And it's like a solicitor. You don't hire a solicitor because you like them. It's because they can actually defend you in court.
Yes.
And you need to go with the agent that's got the honesty, that can actually guide you to a process that will get people through the door and make a good job. Not to the one that says, oh, you've got a lovely home. That was a lovely cup of tea you've made me. Yeah, let's put it on for about X, Y, Z and hope something sticks.
I would immediately dismiss any agent who used the word hope in their pitch to sell the house. Again, any seller listening to this, I agree. I completely agree with what you just said, which is that you should be asking the agent what their strategy and approach is to achieve competing buyers. Because if they achieve competing buyers, the rest takes care of itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's basically the equation that you're looking for from the agent is the footfall. Because I always say, let's put it on at XYZ price, because I can see from the comparables that will bring people through the door. Once I've got people through the door, I can actually do my job. Yeah. If we haven't got the viewings through the door, I've got nothing to negotiate on. There isn't any offers. There isn't anything for me to work on. And guess what? You're going to get a call within the first 2 weeks. I think we need to reduce the price.
Yeah. Teddy, you could also have told that chap that he could have cleaned the kitchen himself. Didn't have to be his wife doing it.
All the other way around.
I just imagine what would happen if I said to my other half, excuse me, the agent says I've got to tell you to clean the kitchen. I think she'd say, let me give you a message for the agent. Yeah, anyway, listen, Teddy, thank you so much for coming and being a guest again. It's lovely to have you again. And I next time I'm in London as well, I'm going to come. I definitely want to meet up with you again and have another beer because I enjoyed that last time. I haven't had a chance to look in the comments. I don't know if we've had any more. Are there any seller questions? Seller questions. There are some questions, but are they actually seller questions? I don't want to miss them if they are there because that was the point. I can't see.
There was one at 8:23.
Okay, let me go have a look at that.
And a few of them, there's three straight away there.
Oh yeah, so Alistair, here's a question for you. Is the purpose of an open day to get volume of competing offers, start a bidding process, or simply more time efficient? Will you still do one-to-one viewings? That's asking as a buyer.
So the open day, so that's an American term where they actually just open the doors and let the whole road come, more or less just checking what you've done with the property with no interest to buy. What you see in the UK, at least with us, and I've seen it with most of the agents, is technically a block viewing where they are back-to-back viewings, but it's still a one-to-one viewing. So you get the attention for 15 minutes, and after 15 minutes, there's another person coming in.
Okay.
And the fact is that the buyers know why we do the open day, because when they see the other buyers, it makes them compete. So people that actually like it, they'll have to pay the top price. And that's no secret. Because it's the matter of fact, you put it in front of people that actually are interested. And to answer the question, what's the purpose of it? It's, well, I always say it's three things. First of all, we don't want to bother the seller or his partner to clean the kitchen 17 times a week, so they only do it once. The second is we're a little bit selfish with our time as well, so we don't have to drive back and forth. And the third one is it's very efficient from when the buyers start to compete. And I always say, because I get sellers, and that's a bit of my pet peeve. You get the top offer, and they go, "Oh my God, you actually got me that straight away." And then 5 minutes later, they go, "Well, if you got me this in a few days, I wonder what I could get 2 weeks down the line."
Nothing is the answer. Absolutely nothing.
And again, that question belies an ignorance of the fact that what you've just done is you've performed that first open house, which is when you get the competition. You can't replicate that. And if you're going to do a second open house, it already says, well, the first one didn't work. Yeah, and that's genuinely still agreed. Ellie's question is: do you have an answer for this? It's what is a reasonable cost to assume for conveyancing as a percentage of price? Do you have an answer for that, Teddy?
So when it comes to conveyancing, it is related to the amount you're purchasing for. However, it does not vary enough for you to is going to sound a bit rough, but for you to care about it.
Yeah, I agree. I know what you mean. Yeah, it's not like a percentage of the price. Yeah, I get that, and it varies between leasehold and freehold as well, doesn't it? And how? So yeah, Ellie, honestly, if you're a seller choosing a conveyancer, it's a one-off job. Just choose quality. Just choose quality. Get a quality one that's got really great Google reviews, and you ring them up and they're responsive on the phone. And if you can't find one that you trust, you know where to come, my guys. Teddy, thank you so much. Thanks for coming. I'll see you soon.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Cheers, Teddy.
Bye. Righty ho.
How you doing, mate?
I'm not sure how I'm doing. I haven't had enough time to process the news that Starmer has authorized the use of British-made missiles and they were actually fired into Russia this afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you know what my first thought is? Just looking at the way this whole government is approaching everything, it feels like the government's been infiltrated by enemies of the country. Literally.
You wouldn't just put it down to rank incompetence then?
No, because there's too much determination in what I mean. You don't go. I mean, they haven't discussed it with Parliament, as far as I'm aware.
No, it hasn't been.
What the actual?
Well, they don't need to.
I know they don't need to. I know that they don't need to. But you kind of would, wouldn't you? When you're risking crossing a red line that the enemy has said that you would be crossing if you did that.
Yeah, but if your American overlords told you had to do it, I mean, you'd just go and do it, wouldn't you?
I'd still, at least out of courtesy, go to Parliament and say our American overlords have told us we have to do this. Anyway, yeah. That's by the by. How were you this morning when you woke up?
Sore, mate. Very, very sore. Today has not been an easy day for me.
No, and I apologize for the trouble I caused you by asking you to do a spontaneous late night live stream. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I think a lot of people, the 5 or 6,000 people who watched that video since last night have enjoyed it as well. But what we are here to discuss, it's up to you entirely. It's up to you. But you made a comment to me last time we spoke, which is that actually the measures announced in the budget have increased the likelihood of me seeing those 35% nominal price falls in the end.
Yeah, I think you slipped Rachel 50 quid. I mean, it's a combination of it's everything all together at the same time. I mean, the national insurance, employers' national insurance raise, what is it, 1.2%, 30.8 to 15. It's not terrible. Of course, they also dropped the threshold to $5,000 from 9.5. You know, it has a major impact, especially for young people and for small businesses. But then when you also increase the minimum wage and help to stoke inflation that way, and that just makes it so much more likely that we're going to see redundancies and wages actually stagnate as employers push on the national insurance costs. Now, we're not seeing that yet. We've just had the inflation figures today. And, you know, as I think you've linked on your X wall, Sashi Yanshin's done his usual job on CPIH, and he's absolutely right. Services are still booming, and by booming I mean inflating and costing us a fortune, whether that's in rents or whether it is actually the services industry. So again, although as Patricia has pointed out many times, you quite often see an increase in average wages from governments shown in the statistics when redundancies start, because the people who are left are the ones who are being paid more. It's not that it's a better distribution, everyone's earning more. No, it's the happy few again. But it's all of the things. The stamp duty increase at the same time is going to hurt first-time buyers. I mean, there's nothing that she did in that budget which I can see that is going to support growth and increase wages. And whether you blame Rachel Reeves, and let's be generous and say, in the same way that I don't believe you can blame Liz Truss for the increase in gilt yields and therefore the increase in mortgage rates, I don't think you can blame Rachel Reeves particularly. It's a global phenomenon. The same thing's happening in the US. But there is no doubt that mortgage rates are going to stay higher for longer than people thought. Or sorry, not all people. Some people thought they'd stay higher, and that we won't be getting as many Bank of England rate cuts as people had thought only a few months ago. So, all in all, yeah. I mean, yes, there are a few other measures she could have done, like increasing income tax, which would have made your prediction even more likely. But she's certainly helping you on your way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Can I mention farmers?
Sorry?
Can I mention farmers?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've stuck a post on X. I had a bit of a play with ChatGPT earlier to look at a 250-acre farm. So whether that's a cereal farm, a livestock farm, or a mixed sort of pastoral farm, dairy farm, and look at the sort of earnings that you would get from those endeavors and it uses all of the figures. It's quite a detailed prompt. 250 acres, bear in mind, is probably going to be at least £2 million worth of land. And these farms, on their best year, was showing profits after corporation tax of around, of around £85,000. Now, that's after corporation tax, but it's only 85 grand for over £2 million worth of asset. And then if you're the farmer and you want to take that as income, you're obviously seeing about £50,000. But that's a good year. Last year, 2023, was a terrible year for all farming types. Even DEFRA agrees. The average percentage fall for cereal farmers was something like 70%. So they were only making last year in the region of, after income tax, about 25 grand for a 250-acre farm. And the people who did the best were the mixed farmers, the pastoral farmers, who made 35 grand after income tax. That's a 365-day-a-year job.
Yeah.
And this is the year that, straight after that terrible year, that she's decided to go, inheritance tax. Yeah, let's. It's no wonder they're so up in arms. They've just come out of the worst year they've had in sort of 15 years. And now they're being offered this when they have no control over the land prices that the tax is based on.
Yeah, it genuinely increasingly feels like this is an ideological attack, because there's no logic to what they're doing. There's no, if you were just to be completely objective about it and look at it sensibly as you are, just looking at the numbers, it just doesn't stack up, does it?
No, not, which is why I didn't immediately poo-poo your idea of we've been infiltrated, because so many of the things that they're doing are almost guaranteed to destroy. I mean, one of the reasons the farmers are having such a hard time, or did last year, was because the cost of labour had increased so dramatically. And now, of course, it's increased again with the new minimum wage. So are they going to have a better year this year? We'll see. But it's really damaging all these businesses, whether they're in the high street or whether they're on a farm in the countryside.
Yeah. I think I can't remember ever seeing an open letter from so many very large retail employers to a government so soon after a budget, all of them signing it saying this will result in price increases and job losses.
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
I thought it was extraordinary. Imagine the coordination that must have had to happen. How fast for those guys to get together in a week, just over a week, and get that letter written, drafted, approved, signed off by all the legal departments, signed and published. That is those guys going, holy hell, this is a nightmare.
Yeah, it's serious. Can I answer Telesin Walker? I apologize if I haven't got your name right. The reason that the land is worth so much is because...
Let's read out the question, because people listening on
okay.
If the profits are so low, asks Taliesin Walker, it makes you wonder why the land is worth so much.
Right. And the answer is pretty straightforward. I mean, there are lots of different people coming in to buy that land, but they're not farmers, because we know the farmers don't have money. Property developers, land banking, energy companies, green energy companies, buying up areas for wind farms. And it is true, rich and ultra rich individuals owning, tens of thousands of acres and not necessarily farming them, but they've got the money. And they're doing it so that they could avoid inheritance tax. I fully understand why Rachel Reeves is doing this, but it's the wrong tax. I'm not suggesting there shouldn't be a tax. There should on unproductive land, but not something that is going to catch and this is exactly how many farmers we don't know yet. My calculation is a little higher than the Treasury, but nowhere near as high as DEFRA's or the National Union of Farmers. But it doesn't matter. Even if you're only forcing 1,000 farms a year to be bought by ultra-rich individuals or American farmers who, conglomerates who are then going to try and impose American food standards, because bear in mind, Starmer still has to make a choice between the EU and the US as to who we're going to partner with. And I think the launch of this missile this evening sort of suggests which direction he's heading in.
On the same day he announces cuts to the Navy.
Yep.
Let's fire a missile at Russia. I mean, by the way, we don't need the Navy anymore.
Well, Russia, let's face it, Russia doesn't have much of a Navy these days. Yeah. But we do need a few more drones. China seems to be a long way ahead of us with drones.
They're a long way ahead of us in everything. I saw a YouTuber do a review of an electric, like a minivan in America that's not actually being shipped to America from China. Oh my God, this thing is light years ahead. Mm-hmm. He just said, I didn't know this car existed. It's been given to me to do this review. I've never seen anything like it. Everything about it was just the range, the performance, the interior, the spec, the software, everything. Absolutely. They're light years ahead. They're light years ahead in tech. I think we're just in denial about that. But the Chinese, we laughed at the Chinese for a long time about how crap their production was, the manufacturing and design.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. I mean, they haven't they got 100% automated drones laying motorways?
Yes. Well, not drones. Yes, robots. Yeah.
I mean, that is extraordinary. They can lay motorways, I think, 20 or 30 times faster than we can in the West.
Well, given how fast we do things here, probably faster than that.
Listen, there's a few questions here that I want to pick up on. I'll let you take this one. I'll put up on screen there. Patasi Paul says, how can you say that this budget is bad for pay rises while simultaneously complaining about the increase to minimum wage?
Okay. So I don't think I said that this budget is bad for pay rises. Sorry, I know what you mean. You're talking about the national insurance being passed on to staff. Right. When people earn salaries, they range from the minimum all the way up to, many millions. And although there are older people who are on the minimum wage, it's a lot of younger people. And that's where the biggest increases come in those under 21. That is going to make it difficult for small businesses. What they're going to do is they're going to have to meet that because it's now a minimum wage. They have to. But those workers who were earning £25 an hour, £30 an hour, and we're expecting an increase in line with inflation, let's say, they're going to find that their employer will offset the national insurance cost by just not giving them that increase. So a minimum wage can be enforced. That does not necessarily make it good for every other wage earner.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I've got a lot of comments here. So Claire Towell, Marchin, Mike Dennington, Strud81 on Twitch, Sundazing, Egold, Gojo, Pam Stewart, Sir Fleshmorph, Thomas Moran. All of you, I've got all of your questions flagged, and I'm planning to get to them if we don't run out of time. But in half an hour, at 9:30, I've got to start the weekly private movers Q&A club, which is like a Zoom call where we're just privately in a room with me. So those of you who are members already have had my email. If you haven't joined that club and you want to get direct access to me to discuss your move at leisure, it's 45 minutes long, and the link to join that club is below. And anyone that joins between now and 9:30, I'll make sure you get the link sent to you to join at 9:30. But before I start taking some of these questions and points, Alex, now we've had 10 days or so for the budget to sink in. No, longer than that. It's 3 weeks, isn't it?
It's ages. Yeah,
it's really, and seen the reactions.
I don't know anyone who's jumping up and down for joy. Let's put it that way. I mean, the guys that I'm working with have said that they've got an additional 150,000 taken out of their budget this year in terms of their overheads. And they're not a big office. I mean, you're only talking about 20 odd people.
I'm a bit bewildered. I'm a bit shell-shocked. My head is a bit spinning because I got one thing right about the election and I got one thing very wrong about the election. So before the election, as you remember, I was saying vote for anyone but Tory or Labour. Mm-hmm. Anyone else. It doesn't matter as long as it's neither of those two. Whatever, even if it's a weird hodgepodge coalition, anything would be better than the uni party. And I remember saying that if Labour got in, they were going to be like the new Tories. I couldn't have been more wrong about that. Because I could never have, in my wildest nightmares, have imagined a more sudden and extreme authoritarian left-wing regime. I simply couldn't. I wouldn't have believed it. If you had played me news stories from the last few weeks and months before the election, here are some clips from the future, I'd have gone, impossible. That cannot and won't happen. I don't understand. I'm trying to find the logic to what they're doing, and I can't find any. As objectively and as hard as I try, I can only sense an agenda of actual destruction. And I know lots of people are going to say, yes, Charlie, we've been telling you this for years. It's managed decline and managed destruction and everything else. And I'm aware of that opinion and that argument and everything else. But up until now, it hasn't been this blatant.
Yeah. I mean, Jason, have you just seen what Jason Butler's put there? I mean, that's frightening. I really hope that's not true because I
saw this as well. The Resolution Foundation think the UK workforce participation is at least 1 million people higher than ONS says. But there was nothing about how they've arrived at that figure anywhere. So what information does the Resolution Foundation? And don't forget who they are, right? Isn't that where Torsten Bell worked before he became an MP?
Oh, okay, that lot. Yeah. Okay. Well, then I'm going to take that with a pinch of salt until I find some way to verify it. But it doesn't matter because GDP per capita is bloody atrocious anyway. Whether there's an extra million makes it worse. But hey.
Let's. I want to whip through a few of these pinned comments quickly. Rich Brown says, Charlie, a massive thank you for all your great advice. I complete on Friday after offer accepted back in September. Perfect house, perfect location. Wonderful. Excellent. Thank you so much. Absolutely lovely. Wonderful. I love hearing that. Claire Towell, who's an estate agent down in Cornwall. Good evening, Claire. Lovely to have you on the show. In this market, if I were a buyer, I'd make an offer, even if it sounds cheeky, presenting the offer well. So yeah, I agree. Put the offer, make it formal, put it in an email, make sure you got your conveyancer, proof of funds and everything else. I agree. Make the offer. In this market, make the offer. And there's another comment I'm going to come on to where they didn't make the offer. I think they should. Claire also says, I lost a sale today as my buyers were contacted by a property they previously viewed and offered 130 grand off the price.
Wow.
Price. That's in Cornwall, isn't it, Claire? Mike Dennington, talking about the marketing price of the property that couldn't sell, we had on the show earlier, says market at 599 looks better than 600. There's a reason that's a bad idea, which is that when people select their price range on Rightmove and places like that, they will go 600 to, if you put it at 599, you miss everyone that goes 600 to 650. So there is a mechanical reason not to do that.
Yeah. You only get the 550 to 600 mark.
Exactly right. And other people miss it without knowing that they've missed it. Strud81 on Twitch, hi Strud, says, today I asked to view a house on the market at 700 grand. It started at 800 grand, probably worth 650. Agent said, unless your offer would start with a 7, don't bother. So I'm not bothering.
It's fair enough.
Well, no, it's not. What's my catchphrase?
Yes, always make the offer. The agent will then go, no, don't
disregard the guff. Disregard the guff. You don't, as a buyer, you should always ignore what agents are saying. It may be true, it may not be true, but you should ignore it because what they are saying is on behalf of the seller and on behalf of themselves. So you should still have gone to see it and put your offer in because you may well still get it. And that was very foolish of the agent to say that. Agents will often say that because some of them are just so blood-curdlingly incompetent that they actually chase buyers away, like they've done in this case, right? If you are a buyer and an agent says something stupid to you like that, okay, it might be the case that the seller has said you can automatically refuse anything below 700, right? But typically, this is just negotiation, is poor, amateurish negotiation babble. And all they've done is scare a buyer away. Go and view it. So strategy one, go back to them and go view it. I'd love to see what happens. It might end up being your home. Sundazing says, how do you feel about marketing as a guide price versus offers over? Right. Basically, my headline reaction to this question about the pricing terms, should I create offers over or guide price or this, that, it's all guff. It doesn't matter really, right? I would always just put the price. Or the price band, like Teddy said, 600 to 625. You can do that. That's okay. But only ever use offers over when you are certain that the price you're putting out there is less than it's going to get. Certain. Otherwise, you look foolish. And you end up with a price, a marketing property that says offers over this, and you get tumbleweed. And you've just scared all the buyers away, right? But even if you have put a price that you know is less than it's going to get, you don't need to say offers over anyway, because you're going to get offers over as soon as the buyers start competing with each other. So I just always avoid that kind of wording completely. E-Gold says open house sounds like the best way to get the most bids around the same time rather than accepting the first offer. It is. It's the most intelligent way. It's the fastest and most effective way of getting a house sold at the best possible price in the shortest possible time. Buyers hate it. I completely understand why. But sellers are doing their job. The agents doing their job very well when they do that, like Teddy's. Gojo says, how are flats going in London at the moment? In a word, they're not really. They're just not. People don't want to buy
2016 prices for most of them.
Yeah, it's really, it's a bit of a bloodbath for leasehold flats in London at the moment. You can sell them, but you're going to be taking a write-off haircut. And as a buyer, I'd be ultra cautious about buying a leasehold flat in London at the moment. Pam Stewart, I've just asked that question as well for you. So, Sufessional says, how much memory does the market typically have? I mean, if you reduce the price, it can look bad, but withdrawing and relisting X months later is a different market. How many months before it's new? The market has a very long memory. Buyers are often looking up for 1 to 2 years, and they do spot those properties that have gone off for a few months and then come back on with fresh photographs.
Should we tell them about the Chrome extensions like Property Log that will automatically tell them what it was all listed for?
Yeah, exactly. Property Log, which shows the price reductions. It's a Chrome extension. Will also actually show you if it was listed with another agent before as well. So yeah, there's the answer to that. The market's memory is very long. Another reason to not overprice it to start with.
Yeah.
Thomas Moran says 4,000, Ford laying off 4,000 workers. Yeah, all those big car guys are having a rough time. Volkswagen doing it, aren't they, as well? But Thomas also asked the question, is there an argument that you could sell the houses themselves? I know people who've sold houses easily and didn't find it difficult. That's because they sold them cheap. There are studies done and data to show that typically speaking, you're getting at least 4% less when you sell privately. Now, there are exceptions. If you've got a unicorn of a house, an absolute unicorn of a house that everyone's waiting for it to come on the market, you might be able to sell that privately, right? Just down the pub. I'm thinking about selling this, and everyone knows that there are anecdotes of people that can do it, and there are occasional times that people can do it. But if an agent can't sell your house because it's overpriced, it will only be harder for you to sell it privately. Okay, there are rare exceptions, but generally speaking, no, there isn't an argument to sell a house privately. You can't get it on Rightmove, and even if you do, it's with one of those dodgy outfits. So, Alex,
yeah,
assuming that we aren't about to see World War III start, let's assume that we're not going to happen, and assuming that there are no other black swan events on the horizon.
Yeah.
Does 2025 now look like you've always expected it to look, or worse, or not as bad?
As we enter 2025, it won't be as bad as I thought it was going to be because everything has taken so much longer. I thought that we would see the biggest falls to things like house prices in 2024, and they would be slowing down in 25 so we could look at the desolation. But actually, it appears that that's going to now be playing out for a little bit longer. By the end of 25, if we continue with the same sort of policies that have been put forward by Labour so far, and the economy continues as is, which is very badly. I mean, you published the public sector productivity down 8.5% since 2019. I mean, just all of these things, despite much higher pay. 25 is going to be pretty bloody horrible, but we're entering it not quite as screwed as I thought we'd be.
Yeah. It's interesting. But there is a couple of years ago, there was still a sense of joviality and everything's fine, and we also got a bit of COVID cash left over, and it's going to be good. Don't listen to the doom-mongers. But now, pretty much everywhere you go, there is a widespread sense of things are really tough. This year has been harder than anyone expected. Everyone's skint, or everyone's got a lot less money than they thought they had. A lot of people have got their hands clamped over their ears and eyes when it comes to their true financial situation. And I just despair for all of the sellers who think that if they wait, it's going to get better. That's mad. But I tell you what I find interesting is, I mean, bear in mind that I'm mostly involved in commercial real estate stuff at the moment. And a year ago, everyone was still bouncing up and down about life sciences and how we're going to put labs everywhere and all this good stuff. And to some degree, that is continuing. What isn't is there used to be a lot of press. A year, 18 months ago, a lot of press about the defaulting loans and the fact that banks keep on extending, pretend and extend, and letting these commercial landlords get away with it. It's gone silent. But the situation can't have improved because it's not as if they're making any more money. So what's happened to all of that? I haven't seen a headline story about commercial real estate for a while now. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right places. Perhaps some of your listeners know. But I mean, that is huge. When that goes bang, that's going to take out big financial institutions, going to have a very big impact to insurance firms, pension firms, certain banks, a whole range of things. And in the US, even worse at the state bank level. But again, it's just gone quiet. Yeah. And actually, Patricia's made a big point there. Trump getting in has sort of changed the dynamic dramatically, and not necessarily in a good way for the UK. I think he'll be very useful if you're an American, not quite so much if you're here. Again, we get as many of you listeners on this. So Patricia said, Trump election hasn't cancelled the business cycle. It's still going into recession if it's not there already.
Yeah.
But I mean, Mike, that was in response to Mike saying you're not taking into account the Trump effect from January 2025. And I was going to ask you what you think about, like, what is the Trump effect for the UK in 2025, do you think?
Not good. Because I think he is going to focus on making sure that Americans do okay. And America doing okay tends to suck money from the rest of the world. Whether it's his plans to stop contributing to NATO or dramatically reduce that, whether it's his capping of credit cards, interest rates at 10%, whether it's the removal of taxes on American businesses so they can be more competitive internally. There's a whole range of things which, for us, and depending on whether he wants to export food to the UK and whether he wants to accept our imports and at what rate and with what tariffs, I think it could be hard for the UK. I think it'd be harder for the EU, but it could very easily make our lives even more difficult, so that America can keep going on being funded by debt, just as he's doing with the whole protection of the global reserve currency by backing cryptocurrencies and saying that he will never implement CBDCs inside the USA.
Popolop says, death in poverty still on?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What would it take to stop that?
Well, this is the thing.
Jubilee, right?
You get people commenting to you, and I, about, oh, well, it's okay because only 2 to 3% of people actually go into nursing homes or care homes. So no, actually, it's about 25% of the over 65s will spend time. And that number is set to increase. And that doesn't include in-home care. If you include that, you're up to about 50%. And that's expected to increase to 60% by 2040. Oh, but they're only there for a few months. No, the average stay in a nursing home is almost 2 years. And the costs there are increasing, and the cap for that cost has now been increased, is going to be increased next year. So yeah, death in poverty is still very much on, unless all you guys in your 30s and 40s who are listening are actually contributing vast amounts to a pension fund that may or may not be there if everything else collapses, and aren't depending on an inheritance from your parents of a house, because they'll have spent it all on the care costs. Or Rachel, in her next round, will do something about the inheritance tax on property. So, all good news.
Rachel from Customer Complaints.
Yeah, that rage.
Yeah. Couple of comments here. Ed says, open days always seem a bit like laziness by the estate agent. Actually, no. Open days represent an awful lot of organisation and work in advance by an estate agent. They represent better efficiency. It's much more efficient. Why go to and from 20 times, 20 different appointments, when you can do one appointment that takes 2 or 3 weeks less time to do that? It saves everyone time. It's not laziness. It is a sign of a very good estate agent when they can get open houses and get a number of viewers around the first weekend that your property comes in the market. So that's not true. Jack May says, so if leasehold flats in London are now slow to sell, what's the best strategy to sell them?
I know what you're going to say.
Well, no, I'm going to. I'm going. It's try to find out by talking to the agents what prices other comparable flats are actually selling for. They won't advertise it. They won't put it online. You won't find out online. You'll have to ask and say, what are the prices other flats like that are actually going for? Bring your flat onto the market priced with an asking price below all of the other comparable flats that aren't selling, because they aren't selling because their price is too high. So if you put yours on at the same price as the other ones, yours also won't sell. Price it. I mean, make it look as nice as you can. Make the photographs as good as you can. Do not try and polish a turd. By that I mean advertise it warts and all. Buyers don't mind if you don't hide the problems. Right? You're more likely to sell it quickly if you actually put them up front. Like people who advertise cars on Auto Trader and there's a scratch, they do a close-up photograph of the scratch. You're like, oh, cool. They're not trying to cover up the problems. And then make sure you price it like that, and you will get competing buyers and you'll sell it. That's the best strategy to sell anything, but especially leasehold flats in London. Now, listen, on that happy note, I've got this next, I've got the Private Movers Live Q&A. Do you know, Alex, we've got more members in the Charlie and Stig Club than there are in the Movers Q&A Club.
That's nuts.
Which does actually surprise me, because the Movers Q&A Club is very good value. 15 quid a month, 2 Zoom calls a month, direct access to me, plus guaranteed replying to messages as often as you need. I've been backwards and forwards private messages with members of the club today who are handling offers and renegotiations, and I'm there to help them. It's cheap as chips at 15 quid a month, but I'm getting people booking half an hour. I'm getting busier than I've ever been with half an hour and 1 hour calls at 150 and 250 quid, respectively.
Whereas you can get a bargain at 15 quid a month.
15 quid a month is an absolute bargain if you actually want to answer. I get lots of chances trying to, hey, Charlie, I know you're busy, but could you just answer my question for free privately? No. My advice is free. My time is not. I think that's reasonable, isn't it? My advice is free. It's all on the internet. It's all, nothing's behind a paywall. The advice is all free.
Isn't that what escorts say?
I wouldn't know, Alex.
Oh, no, that's why I'm asking you. Isn't that what they say?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. You tell me. Now, guys, I've got a recorded message from Lewis Shaw, the finance broker, which I'm going to play that to run out. He's going to give a bit of a reaction to today's inflation and a bit of advice for anyone applying for mortgages right now, which he recorded today. So other than that, I'm going to wrap up by saying, if you want to talk to Lewis, that's where you can talk to him and the other brokers I talk to. Links below to everything, including my first-time buyers offer email template. But if you want to talk to me, go to my website and look up Speak with Charlie, and it's got all the options on there. All there are links below in the description. But Alex, thank you very much. You and I are next. The next Charlie and Stig show is next Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. At 10 p.m. And but other than that, thanks for joining this evening. Thank you very much. Insightful.
Pleasure.
I'm gonna play us out now with a clip from Lewis.
Excellent.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
Everyone, hope we're well. It's Lewis here at Shaw Financial Services doing a quick weekly check-in with Moving Home with Charlie. So what's happened today? Of course, we've had the inflation data out where it's inched up to 2.3, which is above where they thought it would be. Of course, that raises concerns for mortgage rates. Will they increase further? I don't think they will, personally, because we're coming now towards a very quiet period of the year. Things tend to peter off, and lenders still do need to compete where they've not hit their lending targets. So I don't think we'll see much by way of fixed rate movements, and hopefully that inflation, hopefully it's short-lived, but it doesn't look like it will be. We are where we are. Now, the one thing that I did want to touch on this evening was around documentation. Last week when we did the Q&A, there's generally always a lot of questions in terms of how much can I borrow? Should I fix for 2 years, for 5 years? Can I get a mortgage for, past my 70th birthday? Specific mortgage policy questions. But of course, in the main, unless, you've just come out of a bankruptcy or just been repossessed, most things can be accommodated as long as you have the deposit and the income required. And when it comes to whether, how long you should fix for, etc., that's a personal choice, which really is determined at the point of application. But there's one thing that can stifle applications and stop them in their tracks very, very quickly. And that is your documentation. Now, I just want you to think of a scenario. Just think of this scenario. Let's say that you're walking down the street and someone that you don't know stops you and says, Lewis, can you lend me £1,000? I don't know them from Adam or Eve. And they say, can you lend me £1,000? If they said, look, here's my passport, here's my driving licence with my current address on, so we've got 2 forms of ID, here's my council tax bill, here's a utility bill, this is my credit report, here are my pay slips and my bank statements that show the income that I've got and the outgoings that I've got, and I can afford to pay you back this £1,000 over the next year. I might say, well, maybe, okay. But if that same person stopped me in the street and said, can you lend me £1,000? My passport's expired, so it's not valid. I don't have a driving licence. I live at home with my parents, so I don't have a utility bill. And my pay slips are registered to my ex-girlfriend's house, and my bank statements are registered at my grandma's when I fell out with my parents. So none of the documents would match. Would they be as good a bet? Probably not. So when it comes to documentation, just put yourself in the lender's shoes, because that's broadly speaking what's happening. Put yourself in the lender's shoes. Imagine that you are lending that cash. And we're talking about here potentially hundreds of thousands of pounds over multiple decades, often. So put yourself in their shoes. They don't know you from Adam or Eve, and you're asking to borrow 250, 300, 400, £1 million, maybe. And they don't know you. So they want evidence, they want proof that you are who you say you are, you live where you say you live, and that it all makes sense and is consistent. Now, with the rise of online banking, and because so many things are now digital, it's easy to forget to update things when you move home. That's just the reason why. Because, of course, when 20 odd years ago, if you moved home and you didn't update your bank account, etc., then chances are someone would end up with a bank statement of yours on their doormat if you'd moved out, and they'd have access to all your banking information. Thankfully now that is less of a risk, thank God, because if it wasn't, there'd be an awful lot more fraud going on, I'm sure. But just think about that when it comes to preparing for the mortgage, making sure that everything is consistent, making sure that everything matches, and making sure that it is all registered to your current address. Because 2 years or 5 years is kind of immaterial if we can't evidence you are who you say you are, you live where you say you live, etc. Okay? Anyway, look after yourselves. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lewis. Much appreciated, as always. I've really got to wrap up. I've got 2 more minutes till the next call starts. But just to let you know, for those of you who are new, I know there's a lot of new subscribers on the channel. Welcome to all of you. Nice to have you here. So Alex, Groundwater, and I go back 40-something years. And we have a show every other Wednesday. It's 2 Wednesdays a month at 10 p.m. where we consume beverages whilst discussing global events and politics and whatever we feel like it, usually with quite a lot of profanity as well, but in much more depth. The membership of that's going quite nicely. If you'd like to join that club and have access to those two live, and they are Zoom calls, not live streams, so it's private and it's unrecorded, and you can chime in and everyone who's a member gets their questions answered. That is the link there, buymeacoffee.com/mhwc/membership. The link is also below in the description if you'd like to join. They're always really, really good fun, even if they do always leave me with a hangover the next day. But that's great fun. The next one of those is next Wednesday. For now, thank you all very, very much for watching. Really appreciate it. Have a very peaceful night's sleep if you can with all this horrible news. And I will see you on the next video. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.